Hello, welcome back to working on the M1070 trailer, the M1000. Sorry it has been such a long time between videos, got caught up with a whole bunch of other stuff, but I hope to start rolling through this with you all and help you finish up a trailer. So, starting out with step 2. Lot of little detail bits, and a reminder, we did all this puttying and sanding to make this all beautiful, and it is not needed because of these two covers that are going over it. Feel kind of foolish. That's why it's good to look ahead in the instructions and at least see what's going on, and that'll be relevant for this step as well. So starting out with what we've got here, I'll get my glue open. You've got N6 and M18. Now, if you go ahead and take these parts out and clean them up, and then you're like, oh, okay, how do I tell between N6 and N18? N6 has a little groove dug in around this pin and a little protrusion or pin going that way. So there's the difference between them. This is N6. N6 gets put on top of M18, right like so. I'm going to just put my glue in here. The important part to note is that the bulge on the bottom of this goes away from the round, the large round head of that, just like so. Now we've got N18, and it's getting sandwiched. The articulated arms get sandwiched in there. This is probably going to take a little bit of some figure gymnastics, but the only place you glue is right here in the center. You leave those unglued so that those pistons have that swing ability. So right here, because there is a central piece right there with a notch. So what I'm going to do is glue this on first and get this set. Like so. And it's a nice tight fit. Now with that, and again with this bulge facing to the rear, I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Now I'm going to stick my, without gluing, stick this piston part in there. I think eventually it'll end up being a piston rod. And you can see I'm kind of adjusting as I go. So this is going to be tight. I'm impressed by Hobby Boss's engineering here. So I've got them in. I'm squaring that up. And then I want to go through and make sure that I squeeze this to get that all nice and square. Now there is some glue when you glue this, it'll wick down through that, so be wary of that. But what I've got now is a very tight, well glued setup with the arms. So that goes there, and then without gluing, I am taking part R43. Now the difference between R43 and R42 is, look at the way this fitting comes out and down by the head, and then where this pin is. So they're basically mirrors of each other. So this is R42, this is R43, and which side they go on is important. This one slides on this side. Slides on being a relative term. Yep. And you don't want to open that hole and make it too easy, because this is going to be necessary to keep things tight as we do other work on this. Just make sure that when you're putting these on, that those elbows point down towards this main shaft here. And I know this thing will spin, but it'll spin to where that's sticking up. You just want it to do So far, just this. Right like that. Moving down to the next, well, they've got it moving over here. So with this, what they have you do is glue that hole that was wicking the glue right onto this pin right here. Like so. And then gluing this onto the bottom side of here at the same time. This is going to be a bigger step because you don't want to screw it up, and you want to get this to all glue down well and sit right. And these two strips right there go into these two slots on either side. So it all should fit well when said and done. And in fact, you can glue this piece in first and then put this on later, which is what I'd recommend at this point because this takes a little bit of work to do. So now that I've got that on there, I'm going to pop it off so that I make sure I get a nice amount of glue right there and right there. And then I'm going to lay it down right down like that. Now it's going to start evaporating while I'm doing this, and I totally get it. Sorry, but the whole point of this is to get something started. This is the base for what I want to do. So that'll at least get it started. That gets it started to tack down and started to be permanently glued. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to hit the corner just to get some more glue in on the edge. Start tacking it down, start making it want to sit in there. You can see the putty from the previous work that was unnecessary it's probably more dust than anything is coming through, but we tried. The important part of it isn't, hey, you know what, a failure, you screwed up, you didn't need to do that. More along the lines of is, you know, hey, I cared enough that I wanted to do that right. And it turns out now it wasn't necessary, but I was paying attention to that being a potential problem and wanting to make sure it looks good. Now doing the same thing on this side. And again, the idea behind this is the first set of glue is to tack it down real good. The second set is to get a good amount in there, get it started. Now we've got the inside as well to do. So like right in here, right in there. We want glue in there. We want this to seat properly. This is the proper term for what we're doing here is laminating. We're putting a lamination on it, and that lamination is thin and flexible, and it'll be fine, but we don't want it to pull up or look like it doesn't belong there. We want it to look like what because on the real vehicle, what they're doing is they are laminating, but they're welding those edges in. So could they come, you know, loose and make a mess? Absolutely. Sometimes they do, but for the most part, no, not without a major screw up. So I'm just putting that glue in there and then just squeezing to get it to start settling, to fill the gaps as needed, so that it doesn't look like I just slapped a piece of plastic on it. I want it to look like it's meant to be glued on there. And it's a little tedious and takes a little bit of work, but honestly, comes out looking pretty good considering what the real thing is. You can see how you squeeze it and the material in between there goos up. That's not just glue, it's also some of the plastic that's softening up. And that's what you kind of want, because that'll fill any micro gap in there. That'll help to bond it. And you can go back later on and do it. And if you're really worried about it, you can clamp it. Clamp it, let it dry, take the clamps off, move ahead. But because we're doing all this handling, that's why I don't think it's good to put that assembly on there first. So, feels good. I'm going to do the front. I never did that. You can see where it's pushed up against those set, I don't know if they're set markers, set points, whatever you want to call it, but what they should be up against. Everything is where it belongs. Looks good. Now, if we get too much junk coming up when we squeeze this together and it stays there, we will have to sand that off or clean it out a little bit later on. It's not what I'm going to worry about right now. So, once again, this goes in here. And this part right here is what gets glued on that nub. And as far as I can see, that's all that gets glued at this point. So just a little bit of glue around that nub. Make sure everything is separated out enough. And then just proceed to drop it all over the place. No. And then glue it in there. Now, it's not going to twist in here because it's glued. And again, there's nothing in here that says no glue. And looking at how this is set up, it looks like you can glue right behind this large piece as well. But you can see right here that these pistons behind this is a limited area. So, don't expect a lot of working room in the future to work well with this, or the ability to move this around. So, kind of plan accordingly. If you think you need to do something, do it now. There, I'm gluing that part right there. And I'm looking and making sure everything is straight up. Because there is some wiggle room. And so far, nothing else is going to attach onto the ends of this, but I'm not sure I buy that. Oh, I think they attach. Yeah. Okay, good catch. So these pistons, those little nubs, I'm going to turn them that way. See how when I've got this pointed like this, the elbow is near the tip. You want them pointed that way. So I'll flip this over. You want those elbows pointed towards the piece that we just laminated on, but they attach right there. That's that you glue those on. I'm glad I saw that. It was easy to miss. I wasn't noticing these two arrows right there, and that's a good lesson. You know, I mean, building models, it gets intimidating because you're looking at this big laminating piece and you're like, oh geez, you know, this is going to be intimidating, this is going to be tough, this can be whatever. Well, maybe it is, but more to the point is got to look for all the stuff that's going on in the sequence. Now, we still haven't glued those pistons into there, and we don't need to. Everything's secure. We've got this. Now, what I would say is you want to make sure that is centered on here. You can adjust it with this and then make sure that these arms look good, but it looks like this isn't some sort of an articulating piece for something later on. So just center this right here. Make sure this looks decent. Make sure these are glued on well. And it should be good. With those points going, well, in this case, this way, towards the lamination. With those points, according to the instrument, with those points of these two pieces right here going that way. That's going to be important later on. So we got here. Now, flipping this over, coming to this side, right here is, at least what looks to my eye to begin with, pulley. That just goes on the side there, no big deal. Just make sure you put the fat end in the hole and not the little pointy part. But there it is. And then the other important part goes in up here. This is the kingpin for the trailer. And again, you got to put the fat piece through there. That is what connects the trailer to the tractor. That's what goes into that fifth wheel. And hooks it all together. Just a little bit of trivia, but it's fun. Alright, so moving down. We're going to come down and do this. Now, just a reminder, they say to put decals on now. If you're building this as you go, and you don't think you'll be able to access this, look through the instructions, see. You may want to build this, paint this up, and decal it when you put it on. Maybe do some preliminary priming, what have you, so you don't run into problems later on. I am, again, building this for somebody else who's going to paint it and all that, so I am not going to worry about the decals at this point. What I'm going to do, however, is make sure that that is good and glued. Like so. And in fact, needs a little bit more. Now this is only going to be semi-visible, meaning you're going to have to go looking for it. What you may want to do, and what I may end up doing, is just sand down these edges, sand down in between these straps real quick after this is dried. Now, working with part R21, put that in the right direction, and N19, or N9, this goes in here. It has a bit of an angle, so it should be sloping down and away. Let's see if I can show that, like that. I'm putting that on there, and then I'm going to just put a little glue, let that wick in. Yep, I can see on the bottom that it wicked in. And then just kind of square that up. And that goes right here. But the important part is to remember that the busy bits, as it is, the plates and stuff, are up. This is upside down with the pieces we put on, and this plate going up goes that way. So it goes like this. That's how it fits. It fits well, everything works, but that's the orientation of all the parts to get this to fit right. I'm gonna let the capillary action pull the glue in on the sides. Worked a little bit, and then after I've done that, take this off. Now you can see the glue ran a little bit, but it didn't run everywhere, so I'm gonna quick put some glue around. Again, like I told you before, get it started to hold it on. Like so. Fill that in with a little bit of glue. Fill that in with a little bit of glue. Make sure everything is square. Touching, gluing. Careful of any extra glue like on the top, or you'll have to sand it off. Double check gluing those parts like so. Now that piece from right there is glued in, and again, to show off where this is going, right in here. Yeah, that's how it goes in. There you go. It's just going in there like that. This piece gets on. When this is all attached, it sits like this with this showing. You might or might not be able to see those sides. That's why I'm saying it may or may not be important. I'm gonna sand it. I'm gonna put that on real quick. It doesn't interfere with it, so I can do that without any issue. I can save that for later. So now we're at the point where we need to put this on and this piece on. So first things first, like we just did, this right here attaches in here. I'm going to hold that with my hand like so, and then make sure that these laminated parts fit where they're supposed to fit, and they do. So I've got this all in the right spot. So I'm going to take my glue and, like I told you before, put in my start, my initial lay. And I'm not being too thin with the glue here. I want this to glue down well. I want this to really start soaking in to the plastic, because even if it's not wet, it's softened up that plastic underneath for a certain amount of time, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, there's a hole there, but I don't see any pegs along this line, so it looks like that's a hole there is for that part later. That slips right in. Just keep kind of squeezing it together. Like so. And just like we did with the other parts before, or the other part before, go through with some extra glue on this edge. Let that capillary action seep it in. Now, we don't have to be too bananas about making this like airtight. And why is that? Well, when you paint this, the paint's going to get in there. That's a natural shadow area as well. So the paint will somewhat fill that little chunk in. And it's not going to look devastating. I'm more worried about making sure that we get good physical gluing in there, that this isn't going to delaminate at some point in time in the future. That's my concern more than anything. If I was going to show this off as built without paint permanently, yeah, then I'd be a little more concerned about it, because it's going to show, potentially show that there are little tiny air gaps there. But in reality, I'm not going to do that. I don't think that the person I'm working on this for is going to do that. So do the inside as well, so that this all comes out just happy as a clam. Looks really, really good. Feel really, really bad again about all that wasted time doing the sanding and filling, but we know it's there, okay? We know we did a good job. So there we go. We've got that all hooked up and in good shape. I want to put this on its side for right now while I'm doing the rest of this, because you don't want to move this kingpin or anything else. That's and you want to be wary of the pulley on that side. Now that we've got that on, this piece goes on this center right there and attaches there to make that rock solid too. So what we need to do, and I'm going to break my rule right here after I set it, because what I want to do is I want to put glue on this and on these 4 tabs and then attach it, which is harder than it looks. Probably because I've got to drop this straight down on it. Well, doesn't just go right on the edges like I thought. See, that's where I should have pre-fit. So don't put glue on those tabs, just on that center piece, because this thing goes in between. It's supposed to look like that. That's not what I expected. But apparently it's free of the trailer part itself. But that's what it's supposed to look like. Not having worked on the M1000 trailer myself personally, again, I find that to be a little strange, but strange is strange, whatever. I'm just working now on making sure it's level. There we go. Making sure that it's level across there. Everything looks good so far. Well, except that this keeps unleveling. Something to keep in mind when you're building it is this whole assembly. However, I think that's good for now, like that. This is the top, by the way, because your kingpin's under here. So this is what's going to be sitting. I don't know if there's anything else that's going to be going on here yet. I'm just pointing that out. Now, that all being said, we'll deal with this next time real quick and glue that on. The next part here has had some people flummoxed. Oh, well, they show this stuff right in here. This is a warning, and this is also showing this end of it here for the next step where you're going to put some of this tubing in. So what it's saying is the tubing's going to be running to the 2 lines on this side and also these two lines right here, and they're going to be tucking underneath this bar that we've got. So they'll come out from here, go down, go over the top of that bar, and then up somewhere in there. It'll be covered in the next step as to where that all goes, what you need for length, and all that stuff. This is just, it's kind of like a preliminary warning. Hey, you're going to be doing the tubing. It's not going to affect anything, and even without this in, no problem. Or when we do get this in, it's still not going to interfere because it goes right in those 2 slots right there, and it runs flush. But so far, looks really good. So that's step 2. Like I said, we'll cover just sanding this down in step 3, and then we'll work on step 3. Square that back up. See you then.